Hello friends, followers and channel members, welcome back to another video here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. In our video today we are going to be having a look at the PMDG 777 and lots of the features that PMDG have included with this aircraft. Now if you were on our pre-release live stream yesterday, you'll have hopefully got a good overview of what the aircraft is all about, but I am aware that it was incredibly busy on the chat with so many people on board that I will have missed literally hundreds of questions. So in this video today I want to try and answer some of those and also give you a sort of overview and highlights video of just what this amazing aircraft has to offer and how well PMDG have done in modelling the real life systems of the aircraft, bringing it into Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I'm also hopefully going to try and answer some questions that you may have once you've got the aircraft, a few little nuances which I was struggling with to begin with, so if I can save you guys some time with this video, hopefully that will be worthwhile for you as well. And we're going to take a little look at some of the features of the aircraft which I think are really neat. So as with all PMDG aircraft then in Microsoft Flight Simulator, they're installed using the PMDG Operations Center, which will be installed automatically as part of the installation process. And it is also through here that you will be able to install specific liveries as well for the aircraft. Now lots of people were wondering what liveries were available, so as you can see here on the screen we've got a fair selection to begin with, and I'm pretty certain that as soon as it's released, I think the paint kit is already released actually, then many more airlines will become available. But this product ships with lots of the really big airlines that fly this aircraft, so I don't think you're going to be left struggling for an airline to fly as soon as you get the product. Obviously one of the things that strikes me the moment that I loaded into it was just how big the aircraft is. You really do get a sense of its size even here in the simulator. Perhaps that's maybe because I'm just used to the little Airbus A320, but this thing is huge and it looks spectacular. All the liveries are done to a very high standard and you'll see lots of the details in the aircraft as well. So the aircraft, as with other PMDG aircraft, comes with all its own custom-made ground vehicles, things that service everything, all the fuel trucks, all of the stairs, the lavatory, the catering, all of that stuff is modelled automatically. Now you can turn these off if you prefer and use GSX if you have that, and there is a GSX profile built with the aircraft that comes shipped with it, so that means that all of the GSX vehicles will align with it correctly if you want to use those. So starting with the exterior of the aircraft, during your walk around, which might not be something you'd normally do in the flight sim, but for this aircraft it's actually important, you're going to need to check the brake pins because they will show you the wear and tear of the disc brake lining, and brake dust will gather on the rims as well and get dirtier and dirtier with each landing that you do. And you're going to need to keep an eye on those tyres because they will eventually need replacing. You don't want to be landing on wheels that are potential to a blowout when you touch down. The wear and tear is also based on things like the taxi distance that you do, the number of takeoff and landing cycles, if you're using heavy braking, manual or auto brake, and I think the fact that they have gone into so much detail. In fact, the tyre manufacturers of the real aircraft have provided real world data on tyre wear and tear, and that has been modelled and is then stored for each of your aircraft liveries. So obviously if you fly British Airways one day and then Japan the next, it will remember the wear and tear for your British Airways aircraft when you next fly it. Inside the flight deck then, as you would expect, it is all very, very neat. Everything here is of course based on the real world flight deck and it's all been modelled to a high degree of accuracy. As an Airbus guy, stepping into a Boeing cockpit usually gives me palpitations when I look at the overhead, but to be fair, the 777 isn't actually much older than the Airbus A320, so you'll find that the overhead of the 777 is much more ergonomic than say the 737. In terms of clickability, most things in the flight deck work. The CBs, however, the circuit breakers, these don't, which means that whilst the aircraft does have failures simulated, you're not going to need anything in terms of a system reset in order to fix them. You will find, however, that most things in this flight deck do work, however, and are clickable, and even the pens at the front of the cockpit are also clickable for those of you that feel the need. The aircraft does come fully equipped with sun visors, and they're not just any sun visors. You can actually move these and they slide around, meaning you can get the perfect angle on them. Sun visors are literally on every single window in this flight deck, and they do have an effect on the way that the sun lights up inside the cockpit as well, which again is a really nice touch. So let's just step out of the flight deck for a moment and go for a walk. Now, the cabin of the aircraft is fully modelled, as you can see here, meaning you can walk the entire length down the flight deck. Of course, at the front, you get the nice expensive seats. What I do like about this is that it means setting up custom views, wing views, engine views, that kind of stuff is really nice and simple. You can obviously walk through the cabin as I'm doing here, get yourself up close to the window, and then you can save a custom view. If you're unsure how to do this, it's simply by on your keyboard pressing Control Alt and then a number 1 through to 0. To recall that view, then you just simply press the corresponding Alt and whichever number you have saved that view to. You will find that with all the different liveries as well, all the cabin changes. So if you're flying British Airways, the in-flight entertainment screen will be a British Airways display, and even the texture around the windows, the actual cabin textures themselves, are different depending upon each airline. The external modelling has been done to a really high standard, and one of the things that you may notice is that the engine actually wobbles a bit depending upon the conditions you're flying through. This is in line with the real aircraft, because these engines not only huge but have long pylons to attach them to the wings. They do vibrate and move around a bit, as you can see here. I did find that the aircraft also has very good wind flex animations, and if you actually watch this aircraft during a takeoff roll, you'll see the wings lifting up as they gain the lift and drag the aircraft fuselage up into the air. So that is really nicely done. Also, a head-on view, you'll see that the ends of the wings sitting nice and high in flight, as it would be in real life. Heading back into the flight deck, then let's have a look at some of the features that the PMDG have brought us. Obviously, the cockpit has been done to a high standard, as I've said, and you can see that everything else has been modelled, even the hat hooks at the back there. Doors close as you would expect. We've got all the safety gear in the compartments. None of that is clickable, but that really doesn't matter too much. And yeah, we've got laptop cases and things, all the usual things that a pilot would take with them, space for all of those, and they are indeed modelled here in the flight deck. So let's have a look at some of the other things that we've got, and one of the key features of the aircraft is the EFB. Now, this is something that was missing from the PMDG 737 when it first became available, a bone of contention for some. Now, this is a fairly simplistic tablet, but it is movable. Now, if you click on the various click spots in the flight deck, you can actually put this where you need it at any given time. So this is quite useful, being able to hold this here, because obviously if you want to transfer information from your takeoff performance calculations, grab the weather, that kind of stuff, you can put it into the flight management computer, and you're not having to pan left and right like you do in the Phoenix, for example. So I think that is a really nice touch, being able to do that. You can also stow the EFB with this little area down there. Just be aware, however, though, when it is stowed and in certain other places, that it is not charging. So keep an eye on the charge of your tablet, particularly on those long-haul flights. Obviously, other little things, we've got the oxygen test showing there as well. There's a little tray table as well. Now, the EFB will link up with your SimBrief account as well if you add that into the settings page, and that means that you can just automatically pull in all the information. You can also enter things like your Hoppies ID if you want to use ACARS. You can choose the weather source, so either from the simulator or real world weather, which makes sense. Now, there is something that confused me at the start here on the preferences page, and that is all of the different settings you can see here, things like the weight unit, the pressure unit, temperature, airspeed and length, etc. All of these settings are for your operational flight plan from SimBrief to make sure they align. They do not affect the aircraft itself. Those settings are changed in the FMC. If you do have a Navigraph subscription, you can obviously link that in here as well, but you don't actually need one because a map is included, a PMDG map. The takeoff performance calculations are also available in the EFB, and what is quite nice here is you can see we've got a landing dispatch calculator, which I don't think any other aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator has at the moment. The difference between landing dispatch and landing en route is a legal requirement. You can't dispatch your aircraft if you don't think you're going to safely be able to land at your destination. Maybe there's scope for a full video explaining the two at some point in the future. All your ground operations are also controlled through the EFB, things like your ground connections, ground service vehicles, and also the ground maintenance. Remember what I said earlier about keeping a check on your tyres. This is where you would go through and service all of those. The EFB also comes equipped with a automated ground ops mode. This basically means that you can set your turnaround time, a short turnaround or a long turnaround. I think the short is 55, the long is about an hour and a half. Enter your desired fuel into here and then press the OK button, and then all of your ground services are completely automated, and you can see the progress bars of each service in there as well. Now this brings me on next to probably one of my favorite features of this aircraft. Obviously the 777, the ER as well, is designed for long haul flights. You don't really take this aircraft out to do a quick half an hour spin between a couple of airports. This is desired to traverse the globe. However, doing that of course takes a considerable amount of time, and not everybody has got a spare 9 or 10 hours to be able to enjoy doing that. Now, time acceleration in flight simulators has been around for a long time, even the early days of FSX and previous releases of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that is also available here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The only problem with time acceleration though is it places a lot of load on your computer hardware, particularly when it's an aircraft as complicated as something like the 777, with lots of real-world calculations going on in the background looking after your aircraft. It's not uncommon to speed up time in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and heavy-duty aircrafts like the Phoenix aircraft, for example, with so much going off under the hood, start to become unstable to the point where the autopilot might disconnect, and even in some circumstances you'd get a crash to desktop simply because the simulator is having to work overtime because you've got time compression on. Well, PMDG have obviously thought long and hard about this, knowing that this aircraft is designed for long-haul flights, and wanted to utilize the time compression that is offered in the flight simulator, but without compromising the stability of your system. So they have invented auto cruise. Now this is a feature that you turn on in the EFB. Auto Cruise gives you the ability to set the maximum rate of time compression. Turn it on, and what the aircraft will do is it will speed up time to a maximum rate that you choose. Obviously you can see there you could go up to 16 if you wished, and it will monitor the aircraft, and when it is not really doing very much, it will use the maximum amount of time compression, automatically speeding up to your maximum set. But then if things start to get complicated, perhaps there's a level change or there's a turn the aircraft needs to make, basically if it feels that the system is slowing down, it will automatically reduce that time compression back to 1, so you're on live time, let the system gain stability, and then it will automatically speed up time again. I find this to be very clever. I've tested it a few times and it works incredibly well, just as it did on our live stream yesterday when we did a 10-hour flight in about 3 hours. Now it's fair to say that there are limitations with this. You can go up to a multiplier of 16 for the time, but that really is only for your top higher end systems. I found it worked perfectly well for me on 4 times speed, and if you're over the Atlantic with no scenery to render, then 8 times speed is fine as well. Now there are included with this aircraft lots of little features which you might not be aware of and could potentially catch you out. For example, the crew alertness monitoring system is included in this aircraft. This is a system which basically just monitors the pilot's flight inputs, anything that they press in the flight deck, because if nothing is touched for a period of time, then the crew alert system will go off just to make sure that you haven't fallen asleep. You can actually turn this feature off if you wish in the options menu of the flight management computer. Unfortunately, real crew members can't do this in real life. Another feature of the aircraft is the accurately modelled parking brakes. In real life, the pilots must push down on the rudder pedals to activate the pedal brakes before setting the parking brake lever in the flight deck. Now this has been modelled so for those of you who actually have rudder pedals and can mimic this feature, you can do it as per the real aircraft. Of course, if you haven't, again, you can turn this feature off as well, but maybe something to catch you out wondering why you potentially can't set the parking brake when you just activate it normally. The aircraft does come with a working weather radar as well, but be aware that this weather radar isn't fully accurate. Sadly, Microsoft Flight Simulator basically only offers a top-down view of the clouds, so there's no actual data available for precipitation. So, of course, PMDG can't really do anything about this at the moment. There is also another great little feature that I like in the options of the flight management computer, and that is you can predetermine a minimum runway length for the airports that you wish to display on the navigation display. This is something that I wish all commercial aircraft in the flight simulator had, because obviously a 777 is not going to be able to land at a grass strip somewhere, so what is the point of showing those on your navigation display? You can filter out via runway length to make sure that only airports big enough and capable of taking a 777 are actually shown there, which is perfect for when you're looking for potential divert options. Finally then, one of the most realistic things that I think I've ever seen in any flight simulator is the fact that the PMDG team have also modelled fuel density correctly. Now basically what this means is fuel density will vary depending upon where you are in the world, because depending on how it was refined, etc., and the temperature of the air at the time that you're loading the fuel, the density of your fuel will change. If you are somewhere in the world with a low fuel density, which is around 6.4 pounds to the gallon, and it's quite warm, then you may find that you actually can't load a full load of fuel in the aircraft just because the tanks have a limited volume. This has been modelled in the 777. So if, for example, you're in a place with poor fuel quantity, such as China, and it's a hot day, you may find you're not going to be able to get the full advertised range of the aircraft out of your fuel tanks. Something to consider when planning those long-haul flights. So obviously at the time I'm filming this, hopefully this aircraft should be released in the next few days for you all. I'd love to hear your comments on the PMDG 777's upcoming release. Will it be a first day purchase for you guys? How long have you been waiting for this aircraft? Or are you not bothered? Are you more of an Airbus guy? But even if you are, I can highly recommend this aircraft, as I've enjoyed my short time flying this aircraft as whilst I've had it, and as you know if you watch the channel regularly, I'm Airbus through and through. Before you go, don't forget to check out the video description where you'll find a 10% discount code for anything you purchase via our channel partner, the Contrail store. Great way to save yourself some money picking up some awesome scenery and aircraft. And also our other channel partner, Builds, the link in the video description below. Purchasing any of their aircraft or scenery through that link also supports the channel as well, so thank you to those of you who already do that. Hopefully this video then will have answered some of your questions regarding the upcoming 777 release. I think it is a fine aircraft, and I know many of you have been waiting for this aircraft for a long time. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, of course, then please don't forget to leave a like, and remember, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss any of our future videos, and of course our live stream flights as well. Thank you for watching. I shall see you all again very soon. Bye bye for now.